Once upon a time, there lived a woman named Ugochi. Ugochi was married to a very rich man who was a chief in a village in the east. She moved away from her own village years ago to start up a new life, and she met her rich husband in the process. Ugochi was so pompous as she only mingled with rich people, such as her rich husband's friends and their wives. One day, Ugochi was in the company of her rich friends when she caught sight of her childhood friend, Nkoli. She was so shocked to see Nkoli, as their paths had not crossed in years. Ugochi had not seen Nkoli since she moved away from her village, and she began to wonder what Nkoli was doing in her house. Ugochi pretended not to know Nkoli and even went ahead to embarrass her in front of her rich friends, who laughed and called Nkoli demeaning names. Nkoli could not believe that Ugochi would treat her in such a way, and this broke her heart as she began to remember all the sacrifices she made for Ugochi in the past. One day, this was many years ago, before Ugochi got married to her rich husband. Ugochi's mother fell terribly ill and was about to die. Ugochi, being the only family her mother had, did not have any money or valuable item to sell to raise the money needed to save her mother's life. She was so helpless as she ran to Nkoli for help. Nkoli, being Ugochi's best friend, sacrificed all the money she had and also sold valuable items to raise the money for Ugochi's mother's treatment. Nkoli for many years dreamt of becoming a seamstress, and she saved up money for years to achieve her dream. Because of the love Nkoli had for her best friend Ugochi, she sacrificed her dream of becoming a seamstress to save Ugochi's sick mother. Ugochi did not feel any remorse for what she did to Nkoli, as all she cared about was preserving her reputation in front of her rich friends. One day, Ugochi was home when she heard a knock on her door. She opened the door and saw her old mother standing outside her house. Ugochi began to stammer as she asked her mother what she was doing at her house. Ugochi's mother was shocked and replied that she had come to pay her daughter a visit. As they were talking, one of Ugochi's rich friends arrived at her house and asked Ugochi who the old-looking woman was. Ugochi replied her friend, saying that the woman was just a poor beggar looking for food to eat. Tears rolled down Ugochi's mother's eyes as she could not believe the daughter she suffered all her life for called her a beggar. Ugochi then told her mother that she did not have anything to give a poor smelly beggar as she banged the door to her mother's face. "It is getting late, my daughter. Do not send me away," cried Ugochi's poor mother, who was exhausted from the long journey she had just embarked on alone. Ugochi did not listen to her mother's cries as she went ahead to attend to her rich friend who arrived at her house few minutes ago, leaving her poor mother outside. This was a heartbreaking moment for Ugochi's poor mother, who began to journey back to her village late that evening. Ugochi, never told anyone, not even her rich husband, about her poor mother who she abandoned all alone in her village. Ugochi rather lied to her husband that her parents died years ago in a fatal accident, leaving only her in this world. Whilst her poor mother was suffering in the village, Ugochi was living a life of affluence with her rich husband. Ugochi had been married to her husband for 5 years and still no child. One night, whilst Ugochi was asleep, she had a dream where she saw some beautiful children playing around an old hut. She was so excited to see the children and ran to give them a hug when suddenly the children ran away from her into the old hut. Ugochi woke up and could not understand what the dream meant. She kept it to herself as she could not discuss it with her rich husband or friends. Many months later, Ugochi was on her way to the market when she came across a young lady on the road who told her that the answer so desperately seeks lays at the doorstep of her father's house. Ugochi was confused and tried to get more information from the young lady. But when she turned back, the young lady was nowhere to be found. Ugochi got home and began to think about what the young lady had said. My father's house? How can the answer to my problem be there? She said to herself as she made up her mind to finally visit her father's house after so many years away. One early morning, Ugochi's husband came in to tell her of his plans to travel far away to escort his friend to go perform the traditional marital rites of the woman his friend wanted to marry. Ugochi was excited as this was the perfect opportunity for her to also travel to her village to seek the answer to her problem. Once her husband traveled, Ugochi also set out on her own journey to her father's house. After several hours, she arrived at her village and met the whole place empty. Where could my mother be? She asked herself as she walked around calling for her old mother. After a few minutes, Ugochi caught sight of her best friend, Nkoli, approaching her. Nkoli, I am so sorry for what I did to you the other day you came visiting, she said, but Nkoli was not moved by her apology. Where is my mother? She asked Nkoli, who looked at her in disappointment. Please, where is my mother? Ugochi said again, and Nkoli blurted out in anger, you killed your mother. Your mother died few days after you sent her away from your house. Your poor mother came to visit you, despite the fact that you abandoned her for years and you sent her away, calling her a poor beggar. Your mother was heartbroken, a daughter she suffered to take care of after her husband's death. You shut the door to her face, leaving her to walk in the dark alone for hours. Your mother arrived home late that night and could not sleep or eat for days, as all she did was cry and call out your name. But you were nowhere to be found. Few days later, your mother died of a heartbreak, but before she died, she told me to give you this. Nkoli handed Ugochi a cup, saying, your mother said you should drink some water from this cup and your problems will be solved. Ugochi was in so much pain at this point, as the cup she was holding was her mother's favorite cup. Ugochi began to weep, as she never knew that the last time she would see her old mother was the day she turned her away from her house, calling her a poor beggar. Ugochi then did as her mother instructed and drank some water from her mother's favorite cup. The next day, Ugochi was about going back to her husband's village and decided to bid her best friend Nkoli farewell when she stumbled on her husband and his friend in Nkoli's house. Nkoli was the woman her husband's friend came to marry. "What are you doing here?" her husband asked Ugochi in shock. Ugochi began to stammer, as she was not expecting to see her husband in her village. "I can explain," Ugochi said, as she began to tell her husband the whole story. "So, you are the woman my friend told me about that turned her poor mother away, calling her a poor beggar?" Ugochi's husband asked, as his friend had already told him the story few months ago. Ugochi continued to stammer, as she did not know what to say at this point. "I am disappointed in you, and I never want to see you again," said Ugochi's rich husband, who was so furious at his wife for lying to him all these years. "How can you be so wicked to your own poor mother?" he said in anger, as Ugochi began to cry and plead with him for forgiveness. Ugochi's husband ended his marriage with her, and Ugochi had to return back to her father's small hut, as she had nowhere else to go. None of her rich friends came to see her, and no one intervened to bring her back to her husband's house. Ugochi regretted all she did, as she wished she never treated her poor mother in such a wicked way. Many months later, Ugochi had lost the will to live and was about harming herself when she heard a knock on her door. She opened up the door and saw her best friend Nkoli and her husband standing outside her father's hut. Ugochi began to cry profusely, as she never expected to see her husband ever again. Her friend Nkoli, being her best friend and now Ugochi's husband's friend's wife, interceded on Ugochi's behalf and begged Ugochi's rich husband to forgive her. After several months of begging, her husband agreed and came to take his wife back home. That was how Ugochi learned her lesson, and she never looked down on anyone ever again. Few months later, she got pregnant and gave birth to twins, a boy and a girl, and they all lived happily. The lesson to be learned from this story is that we should never look down on anyone. Never ever deny knowing your friends or family because you want to impress people who don't matter. Anyone who is unable to accept your family the way they are is not worth it. Family comes first. Always remember that. I hope you enjoyed the story. Please like, subscribe, and leave a comment. It helps us grow our channel. I'll see you in our next story. Bye.